What you just heard is how my encounter with the creepy clowns ended. Me speeding off, and my boy Caesar firing the AK-47 out of the sunroof. But in order for you to truly understand what went down, I need to take you back, way back to the beginning.
I got enemies. I got enemies. Got a lot of enemies. Got a lot of people trying to bring me in my energy.
You see, my boy Caesar and I have been hustlers since we were kids. We started off stealing boxes of Snickers from the corner store and selling them on the corner for $1 a piece. And over the years, we graduated to more hardcore pharmaceutical sales. Our creepy clown encounter happened while we were in a small town whose name I'm not going to tell you. We had just set up shop and started working in the area. You see, the thing about small towns is everybody knows each other. So 6 new faces in the town is bound to draw some attention from law enforcement, especially when those faces are Latinos. However, we managed to keep ourselves out of trouble, handle our business, and get our work pushed out. It was literally our last night in town. Caesar and I had stopped at a gas station on the outskirts of the city to fill up our tank for the drive home. I had just gotten out of the car, leaving it running, blasting our new favorite song by Drake, I Got Enemies. Caesar was in the passenger seat, bouncing around like an idiot and rapping the lyrics as I walked up to the window to pay for gas. The woman behind the security door slid the metal drawer out, and I asked her for $25 on pump 1. That's when I noticed she had this bugged out look on her face, and she asked me if I had seen anyone when we pulled up. I casually answered, nah, I ain't seen nobody. Who you think is out here? To paint a perfect picture for you, this gas station was on the outskirts of town, about 5 miles away from everything. In fact, it's the last gas station for the next 100 miles. Essentially, somebody cleared a wooded area and dropped the gas station in it. Like I was telling you, I casually said, nah, we ain't seen nobody out here. Who do you think is out here? That's when her eyes got big. And she said there were people in clown suits, and they were standing near the pumps with bats and knives and machetes, just staring at her as she walked around inside the store. For a second, I thought to myself, I wish a motherfucker would run up on me in a clown costume. As I turned and headed back to my car, and I kind of laughed. But walking back to the car, something clearly had shaken this woman up. Her eyes were big and she was sweating. She damn sure was shook up. But clowns? Nah, that's some movie type stuff. That ain't what's going on. When I arrived at the car, I placed the pump in the gas tank and clicked the little notch that made it pump automatically. Then I headed to the driver's side window to reach in and get a cigarette from Caesar, who by now had turned down the music and was playing on his cell phone. When I turned around to light the cigarette, I'll be damned. There they were. 3 idiots with clown outfits on. 1 standing by the door to the gas station, and 2 right at the window I had just left. The 2 standing near the window had bats, and the other one had a machete in his hand. It was clear that these 3 had been terrorizing this woman all night. So I stuck my head back in the car real quickly to get Caesar's attention and grabbed my pistol just in case they decided to run up on us. They seemed to be completely ignoring us at first, but for some reason, when I pulled that gas pump out of the tank and hung it up, one of them turned around and started slowly walking our way. The whole situation started to feel like something out of a horror movie. That's when I noticed something moving out of the corner of my left eye. Looking around, I realized that we were actually surrounded by clowns, several of them coming from out of the woodlines across the street and from around the side of the store. I ain't gonna lie to you, even though I had a weapon, something about this shit scared the hell out of me. So I hopped in the car and rolled up the window. But Caesar, he thought the shit was funny. The next thing I knew, he turned the Drake song back on, opened the sunroof, climbed out with his AK-47, and this crazy bastard started shooting. I hit the gas and we sped out of there. Now, I don't think he hit anyone, but man, you should have saw them clowns rolling, crawling, climbing, sliding, running. Oh my God, it was hilarious.
I got enemies, got a lot of enemies.
with all the confusion and hysteria about clowns going around, it's hard to tell what's true and what's not. Some of the reports I've read seem like exaggerations, while others are all too real. The encounter that my family had with these group of men dressed as clowns was not only frightening, but disturbing as well. You see, this all started in August of this year, August 13th to be exact. Now, to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm what you call a red-blooded American patriot. I believe in the Constitution, and above all things, the Second Amendment. So my home is well protected, and my family is always well armed. My sons, David and William, are 13 and 16 years old. And my wife is beautiful, the woman of my dreams. And everyone in my household knows how to use a firearm. So when the whole clown craze started happening, we thought nothing of it. The day all this drama began, I was headed out of town to Houston, and William, my oldest son, was preparing for a night out with his friends. I stood there in the kitchen talking to my wife, and as we talked, I glanced out of the window and noticed this weird van. What really caught my attention was that it looked a lot like the van from the A-Team. And I remember chuckling and thinking to myself, what the hell, Mr. T just moved in our neighborhood. Now, it was suspicious, but it really wasn't that alarming, because it was just driving by. Anyway, so I packed my bags and I headed to the airport. The trip to Houston for me was going to be a short one. I was going there to sign a contract for some houses I was going to buy in the area. So this was going to be like a quick Sunday brunch and then right back on the plane headed home. But while I was in Houston, I had no clue what was going on back home. My son William had gone out with his friends down to the lake. And this was something that they did almost every other weekend during the summer. 20 or 30 teenagers down at the lake hanging out, doing whatever teenagers do. And the way he told me the story was this. He and his friends were spread out all across the area. Some in the water swimming, others hanging out playing music, and some others were off to themselves trying to find some private time. That's when they spotted 4 people dressed as clowns standing on the far side of the lake. Will said at first they believed there were some seniors playing a prank on them, so they ignored them and continued to party. And then the clowns disappeared into the woods. 15 minutes later, as everyone was congregated around their cars, dancing and laughing, 2 of the clowns came running out of the woods, one slinging a sledgehammer and the other wielding a knife. Now this caused panic and pandemonium as people began to scatter in all directions trying to get away. It was in this moment that my family got involved with these clowns. William's girlfriend slipped and fell as everyone was fleeing the area. And just as I trained my son to do, he came to her aid right as the clown with the knife was headed towards her. William disarmed him and gave him an ass whooping he'd never forget. But keep in mind, while all this is going down, I'm in the lobby of my hotel in Houston having a drink. That's when my phone rings and it's Will. Dad, I just really hurt someone. I'm not sure if he's going to get up from this one. What should I do? After listening to what happened, I told him to call the police and head on over to the police station. Then I called my older brother and said, hey, you need to go find my son. In the meantime, I was making my arrangements to catch a 10:30 flight back home. So as Will and his girlfriend are at the police station giving their report, I'm boarding a plane to get back home, while my brother simultaneously is headed to the police station himself. Now, what I didn't know at that very moment was that Will had lost his wallet during this fight. So when I got home, it was about 1:30 a.m. Will was up waiting on me. And my son had this look of fear in his eyes that I'd never seen before. I walked up to him and gave him a hug and asked him what was wrong. That's when he handed me his wallet. Inside there was a note. It said, we know exactly where you live, you son of a bitch. You see, by the time Will had gotten home from the police station, his wallet was laying right there on the welcome mat. And when he opened it up, that's what he found. So, of course, as a father, I take threats to my family seriously. So for the next few days, I was packing my 9mm with me everywhere I went. Luckily for me and my family, my business allows me to spend time around the house. And everything went smooth. That was until the night of the 17th. I was in the garage listening to music, sweeping, moving a few boxes and cleaning up. That's when there was this bang on the garage door. It sounded like someone took an open palm and just slapped the middle of my garage door. At first I thought it was one of the kids playing around outside trying to scare me. Then my spidey senses started tingling, telling me that something was wrong. So I turned out the lights in the garage and proceeded to turn out the lights in the rest of the house. As I walked through the kitchen, I heard it again. By now, my entire family knew something was wrong because I had turned out every light in the house. And when I walked to the front window and peeked out, there it was, parked across the street, that A-Team van. Couldn't see anyone outside the house, but I knew they were there. I could just feel it. So I told my wife Pam to call the cops while I went and got my shotgun. I positioned my oldest son William in the hallway and told him if anyone walked into this house other than me, to shoot him. And that's when I discovered something. My fence was open. Now, someone was in my backyard. Now I'm pissed. Someone's in my backyard and they're fucking with my family. So I clicked on a tactical light to my shotgun and worked my way around the side of the house. And when I turned the corner, there he was, a person, 6'4" to 6'5". He was wearing a clown suit, and in his hand was a butcher knife. I should have shot him immediately, but instead I told him, put the knife down and get on your knees. I could hear the police sirens in the distance, and also I could hear footsteps scurrying away from the front side of the house, and then the van starting up and pulling off. But the person in the mask in front of me just looked at me and never said a word. Then, for a split second, his weight shifted and his body started leaning toward me, as if he really was considering charging me. And that's when I clicked. Took 2 steps forward, raised my weapon, and I told him, your ass gonna be in a bunch of little pieces if you don't drop that knife and get on the ground right now. This is my last time asking you. The change in my tone got my point across to him, and without a word, he dropped the knife and kneeled on the ground. And that's exactly how the police found us. Him laying flat on the ground with his arms and legs spread out, and me standing there with that shotgun pointed directly at the back of his head. The police arrested him, but he never said a word. And when they tried to pull a mask off his head, it was glued to the skin on his neck. My entire neighborhood watched as the police put him in the back of the car and drove off. The very next day, we had a neighborhood watch meeting, and we began to patrol our own neighborhood. And ever since we started, we haven't had any crime. And we damn sure haven't seen any clowns since.